Do I really need more money? I had this nebulous goal. It was, I just need to make more money. Well, what does that exactly mean? Why do I need more money? How much more money do I need? I want you to be able to walk away and go, okay, I have these steps that will help me to shift out of this default reactive place and shift into a more empowered agency kind of place. I know for myself, the thing that tips the scale for me, like the thing that happens to me, that's like, Charleanea, you just need to stop for a moment. You need to take a pause. It's actually my body. So what typically happens is I catch myself feeling like I need to take these big breaths. Like I can't breathe. Like there's this pressure in my chest. Like I notice, for example, I start sighing a lot. Like I'm taking this deep breath, and it was like, I do that a lot. That's my sign. And it's like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? Why are you feeling like you can't get your breath? That is when I know I'm in this place of urgency. So I'll feel that, or I'll feel like my heart is racing. Those are usually my two biggest signs. The moment that I recognize that, and again, I realize as I say this, you have to have some level of self-awareness, right? You have to be in your body on some level, and here's the thing. It's not like you miss an opportunity. It's not like it happens and you're like, okay, it happened 5 minutes ago. I've lost the opportunity. Oh no. You will have plenty of opportunity, whether it happens in 10 more minutes, it happens in 2 hours. I promise you, your body's going to let you know I'm not okay. And so I think what's really important, it's not like, oh, I have to have this one thing happen. If I don't get that, then I'm SOL. No, you're not. Your body is going to be constantly in your ear. It's going to be constantly communicating with you until you get it. And it took me a long time. Now in today's world, I'm doing this within minutes. If you would rewind and you would look at me 10 years ago, I might be swimming in this for several days before I get to the pause and go, okay, what's going on, Charleanea? So I think it's really important for the listeners to hear that. This isn't something that just happens overnight with a snap of a finger and you got it. You got plenty of opportunity to practice this. It's not going to go away. So it's going to be there for you for when you're ready.
You've been doing this for so long, and you've been trying on this pause for so long. I'm curious if maybe you can share or give insight into a moment where you were able to uncover some other possibilities or uncover other ways forward versus just, the hustling or the autopilot or the ego-driven way, and what that looked like for you and what you were able to do through the pause with that.
Sure. And, I'm going to be really transparent here. I'm a pretty stubborn person, and I'll be really frank. I got to the point where there wasn't another option. Like I was burnt out. I was worn out. I was frazzled. I was on an edge. And it took that chronic state. And when I say chronic state, I'm not talking days. I'm not talking weeks. I'm talking months and years that I literally hung out in that place for a really long time, to the point where I just couldn't, like, I didn't think I could take another step. And it was in that situation where it was like, there's got to be another way. There just has to be another way. And what's funny about this is, on some levels, I kind of stumbled on the pause, because in that moment it was like, I just can't take another step. I can't do another thing. And I'm just going to sit here. And what I noticed is, in that pause, what I noticed was, in the pause, it was like, I was open to something. I was welcoming something. And interestingly, this chatter in my mind stopped, and it was just quiet for a moment. And in that moment of quiet, something else started to emerge. And this thing that started to emerge was this voice. I call this the voice of wisdom, or the voice of our deep, kind of deep, wise self. And it was this very calm voice of saying, there's another way. Like, you don't have to live this way. You don't need to live this way. And the moment that I had that experience, then what happened is I shifted from this place of I have to do this, I have to do it this way or else I'm not going to make it. All of a sudden, there was this pause and this curiosity and this openness and this wondering, well, what can I do? Or is this really true? Or do I really want to live like this? Like, there was just this very calm experience that created space. Like, there was just this space. Like, I didn't have to keep running. I could just sit in the space and be curious and ask questions. And when I did that, what I found was a lot more doors opened. And it was like, well, I could go down this road, or I could go down this road, or I could go down this road. And what do I think each of these roads is going to get me? And then I could choose. I don't know if that's helpful, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that is helpful. I'm curious too, like, what were some of those like doors for you, or like what were some of the things that you saw once you were able to take that breath or that pause? Yeah, I guess what did those look like, or what did those feel like, or how did you begin to decide which ones to choose?
Well, I think for me, one of the biggest deciding factors was because I was feeling so overwhelmed, so on edge, so frazzled, that when I was looking at options or possibilities, it was like one of my things was, what's going to make me feel a little bit more at ease? Like, does this thing really matter in the grand scheme of things? Like, let me see if I can take you through an experience, that is kind of similar to what you described today about the spiral. And I'm going to take you back, quite a ways, probably, maybe 15 years ago, 15, 16 years ago. And I was definitely in this place of ego, survival. Interestingly, it was literally around the time historically where we were having an economic crisis, and it was during the crash, and it was around 2008. And I was in this place. I don't think I could have been in any stronger hustle place in my life. And, I had left, I'll call it the corporate world. It wasn't literally corporate America. I was working in a hospital, but corporate America was coming into these spaces. And, I had left, and I had always seen myself working for somebody else because I wanted that stability and that predictability. And so I jumped ship, and here I am. I'm trying to build a practice, and I'm trying to build a practice at a time that we're in this significant economic crisis. And I remember being in these spirals of, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. Oh my God, I'm not going to make it. I'm not making enough money. I got to make more money. I got to make more money. I got to work harder. I got to work harder. I got to get more clients. And I was in this place, and I was having anxiety. I gained all this weight. I mean, I was in a really bad place. And I got to the point where I was just like, I was burnt out. I was exhausted. It was like, I couldn't hustle. It was like my body literally couldn't move anymore. I was in bed. I was having all these stress related disorders, and, my body was falling apart. I was forced into this in some ways. And so what happened was, I started asking different questions. Like, I would ask myself the question, is it really true that I need more clients? Like, what's it going to give me? Do I really need more money? Like, I had this nebulous goal. It was, I just need to make more money. Well, what does that exactly mean? Why do I need more money? How much more money do I need? And so what would happen is, in those moments, instead of being in the reactive place of I got to do, I stopped and asked myself, what is it that I really need? And so what happened in that moment when I had that big pivot, it's like I literally sat down and I went, how much money do I need to make to be okay? And when I say okay, I don't mean in my ego, like, oh, I feel safe because I'm making this number. No, I literally sat down and went, how much is my mortgage? How much is my car payment? How much money do I, like, it was a budget. I looked at my budget, like, how much money do I need to make? And so what I said was, okay, This is how many clients I need. And so instead of it feeling like this ginormous thing that I was trying to accomplish that I could never get to, but I was always pushing myself to, it felt more contained. And it felt like this is the decision or a set of decisions that will get me there. So it didn't feel so big. It didn't feel so overwhelming. The bar didn't keep moving, or there really wasn't a bar that I was getting to where it felt much more contained. And I could see in a very methodical way why I was making the decision I was making to get me into a particular place. And so it felt a lot more manageable.
I like that idea of it feeling more contained, because I think for me, the feeling feels so overwhelming and it feels like it's my livelihood and everything's dependent on it. And what I'm hearing from you is that taking that pause is generating doors that you can walk through. And in that process, it's kind of containing this really big, scary feeling of the story that you've been telling yourself. And instead, kind of like taking stock, like, where am I right now? Why am I feeling this way about where I am right now? And then being able to take actionable steps forward out of that, rather than just feeling stuck in that place, is what
Exactly. Because when we're in that ego state, when we're in that fear state, it's like we're telling ourselves this big, scary story that may not even have any basis. I mean, it may be totally fictional. It may be totally made up, yet we're reacting to it as if it were true. And so if we get caught up in those default patterns without stopping and being curious or questioning it, then we make that our reality when it may not even be, it may not be real. It may not be, there may be no factual basis to it. Like I'll fast forward a little bit to, when I made progress and I did build a business and I was working a lot of hours. And I remember having experiences where, I'd have a full schedule and a client would cancel. And I would go into that default panic mode of, oh my God, I'm not going to be okay. I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my house and I'm going to be homeless and I'm going to be so embarrassed. Everybody's going to see that I'm homeless because one client canceled. And if I didn't question it, if I just went into that default, then you can see what experience I was creating for myself by believing this default thing. But when I stopped and went, wait a minute, Charleanea, let's really take a look at this. Is this really true? And I would actually look at the numbers. I had to look at the numbers. Like my stories that I was telling myself were so believable that I literally had to have facts. I had to see, this is what I made this week. That client canceling is not going to make or break me. And I would have to go through that over and over and over again to create a new experience so that I didn't automatically just run off with this kind of doom and gloom kind of story. So I needed to do that over and over and over again to talk myself off the ledge. But what's important is I couldn't talk myself off the ledge if I didn't stop and question what was happening or what I was creating.
And I think it's nice to hear that you had to do it over and over again. It's a little scary to hear that, because it's like, okay, it's not like an easy, quick fix to all this. But no. I think in some ways it's reassuring to know that it takes time and you had to invest quite a bit, even you yourself, to do it this way.
Right. And I also want to make, our listeners might be hearing this and going, oh my God, I have to work this hard to make something different. Something I want you to think about is, and I don't have the exact number. I know that there's a number, but when you look at any skill, let's say, I'm learning to play golf or you're learning to play basketball. They say that it's something like tens of thousands of repetitions, right? Like you might have to hit the free throw 20,000 times to get the muscle memory, right? You have to get that muscle memory. And then once you get that muscle memory, it is sealed. You can do it. You could do it with your eyes closed. These are skills too. And so just like any other skill, you've got to do it a lot to get that muscle memory, metaphorically, that muscle memory, so that becomes your new default. Does it make sense?
Yeah. It's making me think that this is something I need to start working on, start practicing my muscle memory on. And so I'm curious, as we're wrapping up this episode, I'd start off by just talking about how I feel like I'm constantly in this hustle place and I'm working and I'm feeling burnt out. And no matter how many successes I have, if I see someone doing better than I am, that just like throws me off for my whole day. And so I'm curious, like, what are the things I should start to practice to be able to work on developing other stories as I'm rewriting my story out of this place?
Right, right. I think it's a great question. And I do want to start off with saying this first. This is practice. It is a practice. And I think that that's really important to remind ourselves of, because with practice, the better we get at it. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is there isn't an end point. We can get better, we can keep practicing, and we can keep practicing, and we can keep practicing, and we just get closer and closer to a sense of mastery. So I want to say that first, because I think that's really important, because one of the things that I often see with my clients is they say things like, well, I tried it and it didn't work. They tried it once, and it's like riding a bicycle. You get on the bicycle the first time, you're probably going to fall. Okay. Now, most of us got back on the bicycle and we probably fell many times, but we still kept getting on the bicycle. And before we knew it, we're riding the bicycle and we ride the bicycle well. This is the same thing. This is exactly the same thing. And so it's important to remember practice, 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 right? So that's first and foremost. Secondly is be aware, be prepared that what's going to happen is our humanness is going to kick in. And our humanness is going to be our ego. Our ego is what's usually right in front taking care of us. And it's going to be looking at things. Am I doing this right? Am I doing it well? And it's going to happen. We're not going to stop that process. And so that's the second thing. The second thing is to acknowledge this is going to get kicked up. It's normal that it gets kicked up. And when it gets kicked up, there are certain things that I notice. I notice a sense of urgency. I notice anxiety. Oh, there's the anxiety again. That's my flag. That's my signal. Okay, what is it signaling? What am I saying to myself that's creating anxiety? Oh, I'm telling myself that my friend over here that's doing the thing that I want to do must be doing it right and I'm doing it wrong. I must be behind. I must not be doing it right. Okay, let's look at what I'm telling myself. I'm not doing it right or I'm behind. One, is that really true? How do I prove that that's true? Okay, more than likely you're not going to prove that it's true. All right, so what can I do with that thing instead? Because clearly that thing means something to me, because if it wasn't important to me, it wouldn't even hit the radar screen. So then you shift out of this place of urgency, you shift to the place of conscious decision, conscious choice. What about that is important to me? What do I like about that? What do I want in that? Then you look at that and you go, okay, this is the thing that I want. How much do I want it? If I really want it, how do I make space for it in my life? And if I'm making space for it, I've got to let something go. While I let something go that's less important to me, or I put it on the shelf. I'll get to that another time, but right now this thing is important to me, so I'm going to put my attention to this thing. I want you to be able to walk away and go, okay, I have these steps that I can use that will help me to shift out of this default reactive place and shift into a more empowered, choice-driven, kind of more agency kind of place.
I think what I'm really holding dear is like, what do these emotions, what are they trying to tell me when I'm experiencing these? Like, they might be leading me towards a value or something that's important to me, or unfinished business or stories that I'm still dealing with from earlier in my life. So I think I want to take some compassion for myself and meet that version of myself where it is, rather than just pushing it away or blaming it or making it feel shameful. And it feels a little, I'm a little unsure if it's going to work or not, but I'm hoping that might be able to generate more possibilities then of how to go forward.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think it's important, there's some really important steps that I've given to get you out of that place of reactivity. At the end of the day, it's important to say, what am I telling myself? What I'm telling myself, can I prove that it's really true? And does it really, and what about it matters to me? What about it matters to me, so that you can get to the place of being driven by values rather than pulled by fears. I want you to think about that. So if you're in that reactive state, you are being driven by fear. Fear is in charge. And when fear's in charge, what it's going to focus on is safety. When you get to a place where you're pausing our autonomic response, and you're pausing it for a moment, and you're saying, what about this is important to me? You're getting into values like this. Why do I even care about this thing? Do I really even care about this thing? Or whatever's getting kicked up for me, is that really that important to me? Like, in the grand scheme of things, if I were to die tomorrow, am I going to be upset that this thing happened or didn't happen? Those are questions to ask yourself.
I mean, I have a lot to ask myself, I think, from here. So that's great. I appreciate it. I've been enjoying these conversations to help our listeners go through this journey. But I mean, in a way, I think I took the conversation to myself today, just by like how I can directly use this. So I'm walking away a lot. Me personally, I've loved hearing about your own journey throughout all this. And I know that for everyone listening, it'll be helpful as well, who are on their journey of unsettling the story that they're constantly living in and beginning to write new ones for themselves. So I just want to thank you for sharing all your wisdom with us today.
Of course. It was my pleasure.
Great. Well, again, this is week 9. We're almost towards the close. We have 3 more weeks after this of the Own Your Story journey. We are covering this last month how to rewrite your story. Once you've started to pay attention to the stories you're telling yourselves, once you've owned the story, what can you do now to start to rewrite the story and move into the life that you've always craved for yourself? So I'm excited to try this on. We'll check back in next week. Maybe I'll give you a little update on how that's going. But until then, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dedicated to